The sun burned low over the red dust hills of Prescott, Arizona, casting long shadows across the sprawling pastures of Silvergate stables. From a distance, the barns looked like elegant structures carved out of ambition. Pristine, symmetrical, built for victory. This wasn't just any stable. This was where champions were born, trained, and sold to the highest bidder, but not loved. Cole Remington stood by the railing, a sleek black suit contrasting with the dust clinging to his boots. His silver hair was slicked back, and his hands, tanned and calloused, were clenched tight as he watched the horse in the ring. Valor. The stallion was a magnificent creature. An Andalusian with a shimmering gray coat and eyes that once burned with pride. But today, Valor wasn't flying down the track or lifting spirits with his grace. He was stumbling. Something was off. His gait wobbled as if the ground itself betrayed him. "Push him harder," Cole barked, his voice sharp as barbed wire. The trainer hesitated. "Sir, I think he's—" "I said push him." The crack of the whip cut through the air, but Valor didn't respond with speed. He staggered, let out a cry, a sound that didn't belong to a champion, and collapsed. Dust plumed into the air as gasps rippled from the onlookers. Cole didn't flinch. He didn't run. He walked slowly toward the ring, his boots crunching over gravel. The trainer knelt by the horse, eyes wide. "We need the vet. Now." Within minutes, Dr. Lynn, the stable's senior veterinarian, arrived. Her face, usually unreadable, turned pale as she examined Valor's leg. A deep swelling had already begun to form along the right foreleg. Her fingers traced the tendons gently and she shook her head. "He's finished, sir." Cole stared at her for a long second. No words, no drama. Just the slow nod of a man used to losses he refused to feel. "Put him down by morning." Dr. Lynn opened her mouth to protest, but Cole had already turned away. His phone buzzed in his hand. Investors, contracts, the endless machinery of empire. Valor had no place in it anymore. Behind him, the horse let out a soft, broken whinny. But Cole didn't look back. In a small unit behind the stables, where the manicured pastures gave way to cracked pavement and rusting gutters, Maya Thompson was finishing her homework. The girl was perched on the edge of a makeshift bed, pencil gripped tight, brows furrowed. She had a way of leaning into her thoughts, as if trying to squeeze the answers out of the air. Maple, her golden retriever with a nose too big for his head, sat loyally at her feet, tail thumping every so often. "You know," Maya whispered to the dog, "if you paid attention, you could probably do this math." Maple gave her a blank look. She giggled and scratched behind his ear. Her laugh, warm and shy, didn't echo far in the cramped space. Her mother's voice floated in from the other room. "Lights out in 10, sweetie." "Okay, Mama." But Maya wasn't ready for bed, not yet. She had seen it happen. While her mother was mopping the main hallway earlier that day, Maya had peeked through the tack room window and watched Valor fall. She hadn't said anything. No one would have listened anyway. A girl like her didn't belong in the affairs of Silvergate's champions. But Valor, there was something different about him. Something that made her chest ache. So when the night deepened and the stars burned bright above the Arizona desert, Maya slipped quietly from her room. Maple followed without question, his soft steps blending with hers. The moonlight was just enough to guide them past the paddocks and along the barn's quiet edge. She stopped outside Valor's stall. Inside, the stallion stood, barely. His head hung low, sweat matted his coat, and his breath came in ragged pulls. One leg hovered just above the straw, trembling with pain, but his eyes, those were still alive. Maya pressed her small hands to the wooden slats and whispered, "You're not done yet. I can feel it." Valor lifted his head slowly. Their eyes met through the gap in the stall. And in that still moment, the world shrank down to just the two of them, broken, quiet, stubbornly breathing. Maya unlatched the door and stepped inside. Maple whined softly but didn't follow. The girl moved slowly, hands open, voice low. "It's okay, I'm not going to hurt you." To her surprise, Valor didn't shy away. He let her come close enough to see the tear at his leg and the pain buried under layers of fear and pride. From the little satchel she'd hidden in her hoodie, Maya pulled out a small tin of herbs, something Frankie had given her from an old vet's guide he thought no one read anymore. She'd crushed the mix with her mother's mortar and pestle. Arnica, comfrey, lavender. She dipped her fingers into the salve and gently applied it to the swelling. "Old cowboy medicine," she whispered, half to Valor, half to herself. "It's supposed to help." Valor didn't flinch. Instead, he lowered his head until it rested gently against her shoulder. Maya blinked fast. She didn't want to cry. "You're not just muscle and speed," she said. "You're more than that." Outside, the desert wind rustled the sycamores lining the fence. Inside, in a forgotten corner of a cold empire, a little girl and a broken champion began something no one else could see. The first step toward healing. Morning came with a golden glare spilling over the hills, bathing Silvergate stables in light too warm for the mood lingering inside the barns. The scent of hay, sweat, and liniment clung to the air as the first staff arrived, most oblivious to what had taken place in Stall 7 the night before. Maya Thompson walked beside her mother, who was lugging a mop bucket and a bag of cleaning supplies across the courtyard. Maya's backpack hung low on her shoulder, her sketch pad tucked neatly inside. She hadn't said a word since breakfast. "You're awfully quiet today," her mom noted, glancing sideways. "Did something happen at school yesterday?" "No," Maya murmured, eyes focused ahead. "Just tired." Her mother gave a knowing nod. "Well, keep your nose clean. No wandering off like last week, you hear me?" "Yes, ma'am." But Maya's mind was already back in Stall 7. She'd snuck in after midnight and stayed until Valor's breathing evened out, until his muscles stopped twitching with pain. She left him with a soft whisper and a final stroke of her fingers through his tangled mane. It wasn't a dream, she knew that much. And now she had to get back to him. As her mother disappeared into the employee wing, Maya veered off toward the barn, head low like she belonged. Maple trailed close behind, tail wagging slightly with every step. They passed Frankie on his way to the mechanical shed, a half-eaten granola bar in one hand and his toolbox in the other. "Hey, little night owl," he said without looking up. "How's our secret project?" Maya gave him a small smile. "Still breathing." Frankie winked. "Good. You didn't hear this from me, but Doc Lynn's been stalling. She didn't call in the youth guy." "Really?" "Yeah, don't know why. Guess miracles have a way of messing with schedules." She nodded and pressed forward, heart thumping. Inside the barn, the world changed. The sounds were softer, hooves shifting, quiet nickers, leather creaking with every movement. She slipped past a few stalls and stopped in front of Valor's. He was awake. He didn't bolt, didn't pin his ears. He simply looked at her, those intelligent, haunted eyes tracking her like a question. "Morning, Night," she whispered, sliding the door open just enough to step in. Maple stayed just outside, laying down like a soldier on duty. Maya moved slowly, letting Valor sniff her palms again. Then she reached into her bag, pulling out a tiny jar wrapped in cloth. "Day 2, she said. "Let's see if it still works." She rubbed the herbal salve into the swelling with careful fingers. Valor's leg flinched, but he didn't back away. When she was done, she sat on an overturned bucket and pulled out a folded book from her bag. The pages were worn and stained. A collection of cowboy ballads Frankie had given her, salvaged from a donation bin. Maya began to sing. Her voice wasn't strong, but it was pure. She sang of dusty roads and ghost towns, of broken men finding peace in open skies. Valor's ears twitched. His head lowered a fraction. The tension in his shoulders eased. And just like that, the ritual was born. Every day after school, she returned. Her mother assumed she was helping Frankie. Frankie pretended not to notice when she swiped more herbs. Even Maple settled into a routine, guarding the door like a knight of his own. By the end of the week, Valor had started eating again. He even took a step or two inside the stall. Tentative, wobbly, but a start. Then, one evening, as the sky turned coral pink behind the distant mountains, Maya leaned against the stall wall, reading aloud from a dog-eared book of fairy tales she'd borrowed from the library. "You will know him by the silver in his mane and the fire in his eyes," she read, voice full of wonder. "He'll ride not to win, but to protect. Not to conquer, but to guide." She looked up from the page. "That's you, you know." Valor blinked slowly. "My shining knight." Behind them, Cole Remington watched from his office window. He'd seen the girl on the security camera once or twice, thought it was an anomaly. Some daughter of a janitor wandering too close. He'd almost ordered her banned. But now, standing in the shadows of the viewing gallery, he saw something he didn't expect. Valor was alive, not just standing. Engaged, breathing with rhythm, responding. Cole leaned closer to the glass, arms folded. The girl's voice, though muffled, carried just enough to reach him. She wasn't training the horse. She was healing it. And for the first time in a long time, Cole didn't know what to do. The next day, as Maya finished rubbing the salve into Valor's leg, she felt a presence behind her. She turned quickly, heart lurching. Cole stood there. Maple growled under his breath. Maya stepped in front of Valor, instinctively shielding him. "I'm sorry," she blurted. "Please don't call security. I'll leave." But Cole didn't say a word. He stepped past her and approached the horse. Valor's ears flicked, muscles stiffened. Cole stared into the horse's eyes, the same eyes he'd once seen win $1 million purse in California, the same eyes that had gone dull when the leg broke. Now they were sharp again. "Doc Lynn said he'd never stand," Cole murmured. Maya swallowed. Sometimes the body listens when the heart hears something worth standing for. He turned to look at her. Really look. For the first time, he didn't just see a stable hand's daughter. He saw a kid who had done what an entire team of professionals hadn't. "You been doing this alone?" Maya shook her head. Frankie helped, a little. Cole nodded slowly, then walked away without another word. Maya didn't move until he was gone. Then she turned back to Valor, her voice shaking. "Well, that was weird." Maple thumped his tail in agreement. But that night, for the first time since Valor's fall, the stable lights stayed on long after dark. And in the shadows of Silvergate, something had begun to stir, not just in Valor, but in the heart of a man who'd forgotten what it meant to believe in something that couldn't be bought. It was strange how quickly something broken could begin to mend, not in a loud, miraculous way, but in quiet layers that built themselves like morning dew forming on dry earth. Every day after school, Maya arrived at stall 7. Maple padded behind her, nose twitching at the scent of sawdust and sweet feed. The barn had started to feel less like a workplace and more like sacred ground. Valor had changed, not entirely. He still flinched at sudden noises and barely lifted his head when the other horses whinnied across the paddocks, but his eyes were brighter. The angry twitch in his injured leg had subsided. He no longer backed into the corner when Maya entered. In fact, some days, he even stepped toward her. She never rushed it. Maya treated every gesture like a fragile gift. One hand extended slowly, a hum under her breath. A story from her worn fairy tale book, or sometimes one of Frankie's old cowboy records played softly on a speaker she kept in her backpack. "Today's song," she whispered, holding up her phone like a relic. "Hank Williams, 1949, classic. You ready?" Valor flicked an ear and exhaled through his nostrils. "I'll take that as a yes." As the slow, crooning ballad filled the stall, Maya got to work. She crouched beside the injured leg and unwrapped the cotton bandage with practiced fingers. Each time she peeled it away, she checked the swelling, the heat, the bruising. Then she applied a fresh coat of her herbal salve. Muddied from roots she crushed herself, menthol lifted from one of Frankie's balms, and a secret mix of her own, which she never told anyone about. Frankie had started calling it Maya Magic. Speaking of Frankie, he showed up just as Maya was finishing the wrap, holding a bucket of oats and wearing a ridiculous straw hat that had clearly seen better decades. "You're early today," Maya said, brushing straw off her jeans. "Doc Lynn's off-site for a vet call. Figured I'd check on our miracle Mustang." Valor eyed Frankie, but didn't flinch when the man stepped inside the stall. That alone was progress. "See that?" Frankie grinned. "If he lets me in without a fuss, you're basically Dr. Doolittle at this point." Maya smiled. "It's not magic, just time, and songs and listening." "Well," Frankie said, placing the bucket down, "maybe you ought to start charging people for that kind of wisdom. Lord knows this place is short on it." He leaned against the post, watching her for a while. "Does your mom know?" "That I'm still here? Not exactly." "You're playing with fire, kid." "I know, but I also know he'd be dead if I didn't step in." Frankie didn't argue. He knew she was right. Outside, the Arizona sky dimmed into soft coral streaks. The hum of crickets grew louder, and somewhere down by the creek, a coyote howled once, sharp and distant. It was nearly dinner time. Maya gave Valor one last pat. "Back tomorrow night." She grabbed her backpack, nodded at Frankie, and left the barn with Maple trotting by her side. But as they disappeared down the corridor, neither noticed the figure standing near the security terminal in the main office. Cole Remington. He'd been watching. Not out of suspicion, at least not anymore, but out of something he couldn't quite define. Curiosity? Maybe. But there was something deeper, something unnerving. He wasn't used to watching someone care without expecting something in return, and it unsettled him. The next afternoon, a cold wind rolled through Silvergate. Maya pulled her hoodie tighter around her neck as she reached stall 7. But when she opened the door, something was different. Valor wasn't lying down, he was standing, fully, not for long, not firm, but both front legs were planted, and he looked straight at her like he'd been waiting. "Oh my God," she breathed, voice trembling. "You did it!" Valor let out a soft snort and took a tiny step forward. It wasn't graceful, it wasn't steady, but it was a step. Maya covered her mouth. Her knees went weak. That night, she didn't go home right away. Instead, she laid a blanket in the corner of the stall, placed her sketch pad on her lap, and started to draw. Not Valor in pain or Valor wounded, but Valor as she saw him now. Strong, proud, rising from fire like the heroes in the song she sang him. And when the sketch was done, she whispered, "You're gonna run again, I believe it." Outside, Maple barked once and wagged his tail. The next morning brought trouble. Cole stood in front of Maya and Frankie, arms crossed, voice cold. You've been accessing this horse without clearance. Maya stood tall. Yes, sir. Cole looked down at her, eyes unreadable. You realize you've put yourself and my property at risk? I didn't mean to. I saw the footage. You entered after hours, applied unauthorized treatment, brought an animal inside without supervision. Maya's voice wavered. But I helped him. You saw it too. He's standing now. He's healing. Silence stretched long. Then Cole said something that made Frankie nearly choke on his coffee. He tried to rear this morning. Maya's eyes widened. He what? Cole nodded. Only halfway, but he tried. Frankie let out a whistle. Well, I'll be damned. Cole looked back at Maya. What did you put in that salve? She hesitated. Mostly arnica, chamomile, willow bark, and a little ginger root, but it's not just the herbs, it's the way he's treated, the quiet, the stories, the belief. Another long pause. Cole's voice softened just slightly. You really think he can recover? Maya didn't flinch. I know he can. He stared at her a moment longer, then turned and walked away without another word. Frankie waited until he was out of earshot. Well, that was not yelling. I think that's his version of thank you, Maya said with a tiny grin. That night, as the stars began to scatter across the desert sky, Cole sat alone in his office with a glass of bourbon and an old photo in his hand. A race from 15 years ago. His first champion. The one who'd made Silvergate famous. It had taken everything he had to build this empire. He wasn't sure when he'd stopped believing in the animals, but maybe, just maybe, a kid in a hoodie and a horse with a busted leg were showing him how to start again. Silvergate was buzzing with unusual activity. The courtyard had been raked, the fences repainted, and fresh flowers were planted in pots along the office porch. Something big was coming. Everyone could feel it. But to Maya Thompson, it felt like a storm cloud rolling in under clear skies. Cole had been quiet all week. Not cold, not hostile, just distant. He observed Maya with valor from a distance, sometimes watching through the barn's open doors, other times from the office window. Maya had hoped his silence meant approval. She was wrong. Late Thursday afternoon, as the desert sun dipped low, Frankie found Maya in stall 7, brushing Valor's neck. You need to hear this, kid, he said quietly. A guy named Marshall Crane, one of Cole's biggest investors, is flying in tomorrow. He's been pressing Cole to unload anything that isn't producing results. Maya stopped brushing. What does that mean for Valor? Frankie scratched his neck. It means the moment Crane sees that leg, he's going to recommend putting Valor down for good. Says it's a bad look to keep a failed champion at a facility known for perfection. But Valor's not a failure, Maya snapped. He's healing. He's trying. Frankie nodded solemnly. I know, you know, but this place. Sometimes they only see what they want to see. The next morning arrived with too much sun and not enough comfort. Maya stood beside Valor, who now limped short distances with a brace Frankie had modified. Her heart beat faster with every approaching footstep echoing down the stable aisle. Then came the sound of polished shoes, 2 sharp voices, and the unmistakable tap of Cole's boots. He entered the stall corridor with Marshall Crane trailing behind him. Crane was slick. Late 50s, linen blazer, teeth too white for someone who worked with horses. He barely glanced at Maya before peering into Valor's stall. Still here, huh? He muttered. Cole didn't answer. Crane pulled out his phone, snapped a few photos, then turned toward Cole. Look, it's a liability. You keep this horse, and you're telling your clients Silvergate supports sentimentality over strength. It's bad optics. He's improving, Maya said, stepping forward, hands clenched at her sides. Crane raised an eyebrow. "Who's this?" "My name is Maya Thompson. I've been helping care for Valor." Crane chuckled dryly. "That explains it. Cute kid, soft heart, but this isn't a petting zoo." Cole shifted his weight. "We don't make decisions based on emotion." Maya's voice cracked through the tension. "Then come watch what he can do." Crane blinked. "Excuse me?" "Give me 5 minutes," she said. "Let him try. One last time." Cole stared at her, torn. He could feel Crane's impatience like heat on the back of his neck, but something in Maya's eyes, pure and unwavering, unsettled his certainty. He gave a single nod. 5 minutes. Frankie helped Maya remove the brace. The courtyard had cleared as the staff gathered near the far fence. Even Maple seemed to sense something critical was happening. He sat at the gate, ears perked. Maya stood beside Valor in the open ring, holding the lead rope loosely. "You can do this," she whispered. "I believe in you." Valor pawed the ground. His ears swiveled. He looked toward the crowd, toward Cole, and then back at Maya. The silence was deafening. And then he moved. First a step, then another. He faltered at the third, leg trembling. Maya stepped with him, slow, steady, never pulling the rope. Then Valor lifted his head high. In a moment that felt longer than time itself, he pushed forward, not walking, not running, but something defiant and beautiful in between. A short, staggering trot across the ring, each step stronger than the last. The crowd gasped. Even Crane lowered his phone. And Cole, he watched like he was seeing fire be born from ash. As Valor reached the far end of the arena, he stopped and turned, mane tousled in the breeze, and let out a low, strong neigh. Maya wiped her cheeks. "That's my shining knight," Crane muttered under his breath. "What the hell did I just watch?" Cole didn't respond. His eyes were locked with Maya's. And for the first time, she saw something different in them. Not skepticism, not disdain. It was belief. The meeting that followed in Cole's office was short. "No," he said, voice firm. Crane blinked. "No? We're not selling him, and we're not putting him down. But Cole, I said no." Crane stood abruptly. "Fine, keep your charity case, but don't expect me to fund sentimental projects." Cole nodded once. "Understood?" Crane slammed the door behind him as he left. Frankie leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. "That go the way you expected?" "Better," Cole said. Outside, Maya waited beside Maple, unsure of her fate. Cole walked over slowly. "Come with me," he said. They returned to the ring where Valor now stood, grazing peacefully. "You saved him," Cole said. Maya shook her head. "He saved himself. I just listened." Cole studied her. "How would you feel about helping more horses like him?" Maya's eyes lit up. "You mean it?" "I do. Starting next month, we're adding a recovery wing, and I want you to be a part of it." Her mouth dropped open. "You've got instinct, patience, and more heart than this place has seen in a long time." Maya nodded, tears brimming. "Thank you." He smiled, soft and rare. "You gave me a reason to." That evening, as the sun bathed the Arizona hills in gold, Maya sat beside Valor under the old oak near the training ring. Maple curled up by her feet. She opened her journal and wrote 3 simple words across the top of a fresh page. "He stood today." And beneath it she added, "So did I." The desert air had changed. The wind carried something softer now. Not just dust and heat, but the quiet hush of healing. Silvergate Stables, once known only for its trophies and cold perfection, now bore the early marks of transformation. And at the heart of it stood a 10-year-old girl, a horse once deemed worthless, and a man learning, finally, how to believe in something he couldn't measure. It started with a decision, a single signature that didn't go on the removal order. Cole Remington called a staff meeting the morning after Valor's miraculous trot. For once, he didn't wear his usual pressed jacket. No tie, just jeans, boots, and a weathered flannel shirt Maya had never seen him in before. He looked almost human. Effective today, Cole began. Silvergate will expand to include a dedicated recovery wing for injured and abandoned horses, not for publicity, not for profit, but because it's the right thing to do. A murmur moved through the group. Frankie stood by the barn doors, arms crossed, trying not to grin. Maya Thompson, Cole continued, eyes on her now, will be helping advise our care team. Her instincts have proven better than most professionals I've worked with. Someone in the back scoffed, but Cole didn't blink. If you think that's a problem, I suggest you rethink why you're here. Maya's cheeks turned crimson. Maple wagged his tail proudly at her feet. And one more thing, Cole added. Her mother, Clara, is being hired full-time, with benefits. No more third shift without recognition. Clara, who had just stepped into the barn holding a bucket, froze mid-step. Mr. Remington, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, he replied. It's long overdue. The next few weeks passed in a flurry of construction, planning, and unexpected kindness. Frankie was promoted to Equine Wellness Supervisor, a fancy title he wore with a lopsided badge and an even more lopsided grin. With Maya's input, the recovery wing was named the Valor Center, and its first patient, of course, was the horse who'd inspired it all. Valor continued to heal, slow and steady. Maya remained by his side each day after school, helping him stretch, massaging his leg with herbal blends from her now growing collection of old veterinary books. She'd even started teaching herself anatomy, sketching tendons and muscle groups in the margins. "You're going to be a vet one day," Frankie said one afternoon as they leaned on the fence, watching Valor pace a new circular pen. Maya grinned. "Maybe. Or a horse whisperer." "Kid, you're already that." Late October brought cooler mornings. The desert sky turned crisp and blue, and for the first time in months, Cole took a morning off. Not for a meeting, not for a sponsor, but for something Maya had begged him to witness. She was ready. So was Valor. Clara watched from the pasture gate. Frankie stood with a camcorder, narrating as if it were the Kentucky Derby. Cole leaned against the fence, arms folded, eyes scanning the horizon. And Maya, dressed in jeans, boots too big, and a hand-me-down riding helmet, led Valor into the open field. "Ready, Knight?" she whispered. The saddle was light, modified. Frankie had worked on it for weeks to accommodate Valor's healing leg. Maya climbed slowly, carefully. Valor stood still, almost proud. Then, with a little nudge and a shared breath, they moved forward. Just a walk at first, then a careful trot. The others watched in quiet awe. She wasn't an expert rider, he wasn't a perfect horse, but together, they were something more. They were hope. They passed the ridge, the golden light of sunset hitting them just right, and Cole felt something unfamiliar knotting in his chest. He tried to name it. Couldn't, so he just smiled. Not the tight, forced kind he used for donors. A real one. That evening, back in the barn, Valor nuzzled Maya's shoulder as she rubbed him down. "You did amazing," she whispered. "You made them all believe." Maple barked once, like he agreed. Footsteps echoed behind them. Cole stepped into the stall, holding a small wooden plaque. "Thought you should be the one to hang this," he said, handing it to her. Maya turned it over. Burned into the wood were the words, "The Valor Center, where second chances begin." She blinked fast, fighting the sting in her eyes. "Can I really hang it?" "You're part of this now," Cole said. "The soul of it." As they stepped out into the main corridor, Maya found the perfect place beside the barn's main doors. With a screwdriver from Frankie, she fixed the plaque into place. It gleamed under the barn lights, a symbol of everything that had changed. That night, long after the horses had settled and the staff had gone, Maya returned to the pasture. The moon was high, casting Silvergate in a soft silver glow. She climbed onto the fence, Valor standing just beyond the tall grass. Maple hopped up beside her, resting his head on her lap. Cole stood a few feet behind, silent. "Thank you," Maya said without turning, "for not giving up on him or me." Cole exhaled slowly. "I didn't know how until you showed me." They stood there in quiet peace, letting the desert wind carry the weight of their past away. For the first time, Silvergate wasn't a place of pressure and profit. It was a place of purpose. And it all began with a broken horse, a stubborn little girl, and the impossible belief that healing could start with just one touch.